The pattern did not feel like a pattern at first. It felt like chemistry. That is what made it so hard to see. He did not feel unfamiliar. He felt like a wound your heart already knew how to chase. Your mind was not choosing rejection on purpose. It was mistaking familiar hunger for connection, mistaking the ache of almost for depth. Because the pull did not feel random. It felt known. The reaching, the waiting, the ache of trying to be chosen by someone who stayed just far enough away. And your mind held on to those moments like evidence. Not because you were blind, but because the truth kept arriving mixed with just enough warmth to make you doubt what you were seeing. You felt it before you admitted it. The imbalance. The way you were always the one leaning in emotionally while he stayed just far enough back to make you reach. But instead of calling that rejection, you kept trying to understand it. You told yourself he was confused, guarded, not ready. You kept looking for the reason, because finding the reason felt easier than facing the pattern. Because if you could explain him, you would not have to ask why this kind of distance kept feeling so familiar to you. And the pattern was this. He gave you just enough closeness to wake something hungry in you, then stepped back and let you carry the meaning of it alone. So you started adjusting in quiet ways. You stared at your phone and told yourself not to care this much. You rewrote messages so they would feel lighter, easier, safer for him to receive. You swallowed questions that would have made your need visible. You called it patience, but it was really pain trying not to get abandoned again. That's what your mind was doing. It was not choosing rejection on purpose. It was trying to turn inconsistency into something understandable. And the first cost was not only that he kept failing to meet you, it was that you started moving away from yourself just to stay close to him. You were not drawn to him because he gave you something steady. You were drawn because the uncertainty felt familiar enough to feel important. That is the painful part of a pattern. It does not always arrive looking dangerous. Sometimes it arrives feeling intense. That's what kept you close. Not fantasy, not foolishness. Hope with a memory attached to it. You remembered the version of him that felt open, the softer voice, the way he could seem present for one night, one conversation, one look that made your whole body relax. And your mind kept returning to that version like it meant more than the pattern around it. You thought maybe that was the real him. Maybe the distance was fear. Maybe the inconsistency was temporary. Maybe if you stayed steady, the warm version would stop disappearing. So when he pulled back again, you didn't only feel hurt. You felt pulled into solving something. You replayed the good moments to make sense of the bad ones. You told yourself not to be too harsh. You looked at his confusion and turned it into a reason to love him more carefully. That's the contradiction. The thing hurting you was also the thing making you hope. Because his inconsistency did not feel random to you, it felt emotionally unfinished, like the next honest conversation might finally connect the pieces, like one more chance might turn all the waiting into something that made sense. Your mind was not chasing pain. It was chasing resolution. So you stayed available in quiet ways. You kept part of your heart facing the door. You tried not to ask for too much after a good moment because you didn't want to break whatever was finally opening. You treated brief closeness like progress, even when it kept being followed by the same distance. And that hope had a cost. It made every small sign of warmth feel bigger than it was. It made crumbs feel meaningful. It made you protect the version of him that comforted you, even while the full pattern kept hurting you. The cost was not only that he stayed inconsistent. The cost was that you slowly built your life around that inconsistency. You checked your phone before you got out of bed. You felt your chest tighten when his name didn't appear. Then the message finally came, and it was small, casual, late, and somehow still enough to calm you for a minute. That's how deeply the pattern got into you. Relief started replacing peace. And after a while, peace started feeling almost too quiet. You were so used to reaching that steadiness did not feel familiar. Tension did. You became careful in places where love should have let you rest. You measured your tone. You waited before replying so you wouldn't seem too eager. You rewrote honest messages into softer ones. Not because your needs were too much, but because his inconsistency trained you to treat your own feelings like a risk. And little by little, you stopped asking the real question. Not because you didn't have one, but because you already knew how exposed it would feel to ask, "What is this, really?" So you stayed in the vague space with him and called it understanding. You told yourself pressure would ruin it. You told yourself timing mattered. You told yourself he'd open when he felt safe enough. But what your mind was really doing was trying to avoid the one answer that would force you to stop hoping. That is the painful contradiction. You were trying to protect the connection, but the one being quietly abandoned was you. You got grateful for things that should have been basic. A clear reply, a kind tone, one good evening without distance in it. You felt guilty for wanting clarity, as if needing steadiness made you unfair. You started acting calmer than you felt because some part of you believed calm women were easier to keep. And that is how the pattern steals from you. Not in one dramatic moment, in small daily edits. In all the ways you become less visible just to stay connected to someone who never fully arrives. The shift did not happen because he suddenly became clear. It happened because you finally became honest about what your body had been carrying the whole time. You saw that every good moment with him came with a private recovery afterward. Every warm night was followed by distance, confusion, or silence. Every time you let yourself relax, you paid for it by tightening again. And something in you got tired of calling that connection. That was the night the pattern broke open. Not because you stopped caring, but because you could no longer pretend that familiar pain meant depth. You could no longer keep translating his inconsistency into hidden feeling. You could no longer keep making his hesitation sound meaningful just because it hurt in a way you already understood. Your mind stopped asking, "How do I finally make this work?" and started asking, "Why does this feel so familiar to me?" Not, "Why is he like this?" but, "Why does this kind of love feel like something I already know?" And the answer was hard, because this did not only feel like him. It felt like an old hunger, the ache of leaning in and waiting, the hope that if you stayed soft enough, careful enough, lovable enough, you would finally be chosen back. He did not create that wound, but he kept landing directly on it. So the limit became quiet and internal. You stopped treating your pain like confusion. You stopped calling the ache chemistry. You stopped making room for his mixed signals just because they felt emotionally intense. You stopped turning yourself into a calmer, smaller, easier version just to keep the door from closing. You did not need to hate him to see it clearly. You only needed to stop abandoning yourself in the places where he kept failing to arrive. And that is where your dignity came back first. In the moment you realized that familiar does not mean safe, and being deeply affected does not always mean deeply loved. When you stopped chasing the pattern, you did not lose love. You lost the job of trying to earn what should have been given freely. And that changed more than you expected. Because the exhaustion was never only about missing him. It was about carrying the whole connection in your head, your body, your hope. It was about always being the one translating silence, softening your needs, rebuilding meaning after each letdown. Once you stopped doing that, something in you finally had room to breathe. You stopped checking your phone with that quiet drop in your stomach. You stopped rewriting the message before sending it. You stopped measuring your worth by his warmth. And at first, that felt strange, almost empty, because peace can feel unfamiliar when you've spent so long calling tension connection. But then, your life started returning in small, honest ways. Your mornings felt like yours again. Your thoughts stayed where you put them. Your voice stopped sounding apologetic when you spoke about what you needed. You did not have to become hard. You did not have to stop caring. You only stopped handing your softness to someone who kept mishandling it. That is the dignity in this. You finally understood the pattern, and the understanding set you down. Not into bitterness, into steadiness. You saw that you were never hard to love. You were just standing in a place where love kept being offered in fragments, and your heart kept trying to make a home out of pieces. Now you don't have to do that anymore. Now your warmth can stay with you. Your attention can come back to your own life. Your body can rest. Your mind can stop solving what was never yours to fix. And the part of you that kept waiting to be chosen back can finally exhale. Because the deepest return was never to him. It was to the woman in you who no longer mistakes longing for love, intensity for depth, or familiar pain for home.